There are three main reasons why we say yes to stuff. One is the reason you just pointed out to. Our professional reputations. We do care that people see us as competent and capable and able to take stuff on. We never get tired in other people's eyes. We have tons of energy according to everybody else, but it takes a toll on us. And so sometimes we have to kind of take our reputations and say, to what extent am I sacrificing the quality of what I do because I'm taking on more stuff? I call that in the book the house of cards trap. It's a trap where we keep adding more stuff to our calendar and create a house of cards that is becoming increasingly fragile. And every additional appointment we put in increases the likelihood that the whole thing falls down. And so if we really care about our reputation, it's better to focus on a few things that are aligned with our expertise and do those things really well, rather than take on all those different things.
But the trick then is figuring out exactly which ones to say yes to and which ones to say no. Is there a simple rule of thumb, or?
So in the book, I talk about different decision strategies. One of the most useful that people find is a 2x2 framework that I call Decipher the Ask framework. And it's a simple framework that really encapsulates nicely the essence of the book, which is saying no to the things that take away from who you are, take away from what you're good at, and balance that with how you can bring yourself to your best self to the world. How do you bring what you can uniquely do and what showcases your value to create a positive difference? So it's a kind of 2x2, where the first axis is the cost of saying yes to you, which is how much time will it take, how much energy will it take, how much emotion and stress and tiredness will this saying yes to this mean for you? And this is a very individual decision, because for each of us, what's stressful and what's tiring is different. Something that's a high cost to me might be easy for somebody else. So that is the assessment you make for yourself, and weigh that against the other axis, which is the benefit you can create by saying yes. So are you going to make a positive difference in the world by saying yes? Are you going to, does this showcase something that you can uniquely do? And so this 2x2 results in high, high, low, low, high, low, low, high. So let's take a simple example, one which I call pass the salt asks.
Pass the salt.
Pass the salt asks.
Okay.
Pass the salt asks are ones which are high in the benefit that you can confer on the asker, but low on the cost to you. Sorry about that. So high, low. So it's based on a very simple notion that if you're at a dining table and the salt shaker is sitting in front of you, you essentially, and someone asks, can I have the salt, please? You just pick the salt shaker up and pass it along the table. For you, it's an easy thing to do, but presumably that person needs the salt and it makes a huge difference for them. And so saying yes to things that are easy for you to do, but can make a positive difference in the world is a good thing. So we should identify for ourselves, what are some pass the salt asks, things that we do really easily, come supernaturally for us, but also make a positive difference in the world. But we also have to caution ourselves not to do too many of those and fill our days with those. Now, the reason why we need to do these is we want to avoid what I call bake your famous lasagna asks.
You're spending way too much time in the kitchen, aren't you?
I love to cook. So a lot of these, as a writer, you use the knowledge that you have. And so hey, and to be honest, Dilip, I'll do a little aside. I was going to call it make your favorite biryani asks.
Biryani.
Because if you've ever made a biryani, it's a tedious and long process, which I actually do. And it's hard, but it wasn't as familiar to my audience. So I said, what is the equivalent of biryani? Turns out lasagna.
Next time, publish your book in Canada. Biryani works really well.
So bake your famous lasagna biryani asks. So those are asks which are tedious. They are time consuming, effortful. You can spend the whole day doing them. And they are fine for special occasions. But you have to choose when you're going to do them. So the story I tell in the book is of an instance where, let's say someone is having a potluck party and casually asks, saying, hey, you're really good at baking a lasagna. Why don't you bring your lasagna for the party? And you might be stuck. Do you want to spend your whole day baking a lasagna to take to someone else's potluck? Doesn't sound like a reasonable thing to do. And yet we find ourselves in those situations where you don't know how to say no. But this is when spotting the kind of ask and say, that's a bake your famous lasagna ask. I'm not benefiting anyone with this. So the benefit to other people is pretty low because trust me, your lasagna is going to be sitting on the table with store-bought donuts and party trays. And why in the world did you spend your whole time baking this lasagna? And so the reason we need to say no to bake your famous lasagna ask is so that we can say yes to hero's journey asks.
What are those?
Hero's journey asks are when it may be high cost to you, they might be effortful, but they are things that make a difference. So the things that bring meaning, the things that create value, things that are not necessarily easy, but they showcase your talent. They say who you are and what you do well. And so if we spend our time doing bake your famous lasagna ask, we're not going to be doing things that are necessarily meaningful and helpful. Because one of the key things that you take away from the book is the realization that everything is a trade-off.
Right.
As soon as you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And so the essence of the book is about learning to communicate an empowered refusal that communicates the no response and yet maintains your relationships with other people and your reputation.